Hello? Some folks would hear that, and you know what they'd do? They'd shut up. They'd close down. They'd stop. Well, I want you to listen what old Bartimaeus done. Don't you? Hey, you got to like this, don't you? But he cried the more, a great deal. In other words, now you got to read, you got to get the Mountain Hebrew on that. You know what the Mountain Hebrew on that is? It means this: he cried longer and he cried louder. And the more they wanted him to hush, the louder he got. Years ago, I had a man he was kind of hit and miss in church, you know. And a good fella. Visited with him. He was just nice enough. But just, you know, they just wasn't regular. They just didn't attend regular. Never had attended regular. And one day I was talking to him. We was actually eating lunch. And he said, "You ever wonder why we don't come to church anymore and what we do?" Well, about every time I look back here and see you ain't in your seat, I'm wondering where you at. Hello? I said, "But yeah, I'm wondering if you want to tell me, I'd like to hear." He said, "Well, you know, you just preach too loud." You're probably right. For 35 years of this, my voice feels it on Sunday night. I want you to know that. I can tell that. But I answered him on the way I could answer him. I looked at him and said, "Well, I know what you're saying." I said, and it's bad. I said, "It seems like I can always turn it up. I can't never turn it down." Bartimaeus, be quiet. And by the way, we hear that a lot in the church. Everybody, be quiet. We tell these little boys, sit still, be quiet. You don't know how impossible that is. You can't even get the men to sit still and be quiet, let alone the boys. Now, some of you men, you henpecked, you've gotten there, all right? But the rest of us, we're struggling. Here he is. Be quiet. Be quiet. Listen what he does. He cries out the more a great deal, "Thou Son of David, have mercy on me." What do you think he wanted? You don't have to be a doctor to understand this. You don't have to have a Bible degree to understand what the man wants. He's screaming with everything that's within him, "Thou Son of David." And by the way, what are you saying in that moment? Son of David, Son of God. God come in flesh. What he's saying is this: you can't do the things that you've been doing and just be a mere man. You can't do the things that you are doing and change the lives that you are changing. Thou Son of David, God come in flesh. This is what I'm asking of you. Have mercy on me. Just so happens. It just so happens that he was talking to the one who is rich in mercy. It just so happens that he was talking to the one who has storehouses of grace. I mean, he's talking to the one, dear friend, that the Old Testament said to us, you know what? His mercies, they're new every morning. There's a fresh batch of them every morning. So if you run out on mercy today, just hang on. The sun's coming up, honey. Here he is. By the way, Jesus hadn't stopped to inspect the synagogue. He hadn't stopped to see how the local preacher's doing. He hadn't stopped to address the religious assembly, dear friend. But I want you to know this. When he heard a poor beggar crying out who was blind in need of something, and he addresses him in the right way. "Hey, Son of David, have mercy on me." Can I tell you, in 35 years, what I've never witnessed? I've never witnessed somebody that cried out for mercy that didn't get it. You know what I've not witnessed? I've not witnessed somebody that come to the end of themselves and saw that their only hope was in Jesus Christ. That when they run to Him, dear friend, that they didn't get what they needed. You see, he repeats his cry. He received a response as well. Verse 49, and Jesus stood still. I want to tell you, that ought to have been a Baptist meeting right there. Hey, hold on just a moment. If I don't flip your trigger, you hadn't read that right. If I don't do something for you, you've misread it. You've left some things out, dear friend. The Creator of the universe stopped. The Redeemer of lost humanity stopped. The miracle worker stopped. God in flesh stopped at that moment when He heard the cry of this blind beggar, dear friend, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the one that's over all the universe, stopped in His tracks. Turns around, He goes on, He says this, He commanded him to be called. I wonder if He looked at some of them that's telling him, hey, you need to be quiet. I wonder if He looked at some of them and said, go get that boy. This is going to hurt you right here. Go get him and bring him to church. Go get him and bring him to the place that can help him the most. You go to him. You tell him, I want to see him. He can't see me yet, but I can see him. Hold on a moment. Some of you have walked in here this morning. You're sitting in this place and you're fighting hell by the acre. You're wondering what to do next. Some of you are sitting here and you're saying in your soul this morning, I wonder if God knows where I am. God, I can't see you. I want to tell you something. You don't have to see Him for Him to see you. You tell Him, He says, go bring Him here and tell Him, I want to see Him. And so there is this response. Oh, they run to Him. They say to Him, be of good comfort. Rise, He calleth you. Now, that's one thing. When you call out to God. But isn't there something else? When God calls out to you. Boy, he had been crying out, Son of David, Son of David, Son of David. Now he stopped in his tracks and he's looked back and he says, I hear you. Come on to where I am, dear friend. Oh, there was a response. Now look, was there a moment in your life? Was there a day in your life, a night in your life, dear friend, where you heard the gospel message and the Spirit of God penetrated your soul and brought you to a place of conviction and all you could see was the deserving nature of your life, that you were deserving of hell and you ought to be separated from God for all of eternity? And did you run to Jesus in that moment and fall before His knees and just simply say to Him, Lord, have mercy on me? Did He stop for you? Did He call back to you? Well, you see, He was a man with a persistent cry. He was a man with a personal cost. Now, I'm glad. I want you to know something. It don't cost. Salvation doesn't cost. I'm glad we've got something to offer to people. And look, it's not money. It's not works. It's not having to do this, having to do that. I want you to know the cost for salvation has been paid. But there is a cost for things sometimes. There's a personal cost here. Verse number 50 says, and he, casting away his garment, rose and came to Jesus. The only way to make a living he'd ever known was sitting on that piece of garment and begging. And the law was this. If someone dropped something on that garment, legally at that moment, it became his. It's the only way he had to buy food. It's the only way he had to provide for shelter. It was the only way of life that he had. I want you to listen to me. When he heard that Jesus was calling him, I want you to notice what he done. He threw all that away. And I'll tell you what he is saying in that moment is this. There's none of this life that I want anymore. It's not this, it's not that. Now, you want to make people mad in the community? Now, look, our community really doesn't mind for us to espout the virtues of Scripture and the principles of the Word of God until it begins to hit the pocketbook. Now, back when we were fighting liquor by the drink, I don't know the number of confrontations I had over this. People trying to convince me of this one thing. Don't you know how much money this is going to bring into our community? Don't you know that it's going to help us? We're going to be able to build schools. We're going to be able to have this, and they just lay it all out. Been about 10 years. I want to tell you this. It's not hundreds of thousands of dollars that's come in. It's millions. Y'all seeing a lot of difference in your schools? You seeing a lot of difference in your communities? Now listen, we try not to go uptown on Friday evenings. We try to stay away from it. I'm not interested in that. But we're seeing a lot of that. I want to tell you, what this man simply says is this: you know what? I'd rather have Jesus than silver or gold. I'd rather have Him than riches untold. And what he does in that moment, dear friend, is he is glad to pay the price. And there's some people who don't want to pay this price. Again, I've had people say to me, "Preacher, I know I ought to get saved, but I'm just going to be honest with you." And I appreciate them being honest with me. I'm just going to be honest with you right here. I'm enjoying my sin too much. I'm not willing to give it up. I want to tell you, this man had no love for what his life was at that moment. He pays the cost. And then the final thing I want you to notice, he was a man with a powerful cure. Verse 51, and Jesus answered and said unto him, what wilt thou that I should do unto thee? Now, a peculiar question. You're talking to the one, dear friend, that can touch blind eyes and they can see. I mean, he's already done that. On one occasion, he takes dirt and spittle and he applies it to a man's eyes. Another occasion, he touches his eyes. And all that's been proven. He's done that. Jesus knows that he's blind. Why, those disciples could stand around there and look and say, well, it's obvious what this man wants. He wants to be able to see. And yet Jesus does require this. Tell me what it is that you want. And notice what he says. Lord, by the way, he just gets better and better at this title. Lord, that I might receive my sight. Lord, what I want is I want to be able to see. Last verse. And Jesus said unto him, go thy way, thy faith hath made thee whole. And immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus in the way. Oh, dear friend, I want to tell you, he got exactly what he was wanting. And he got it from the only one that could give it to him. Doesn't matter who else in life had mercy on him. They couldn't have this type of mercy. Doesn't matter who else wanted to help him. They couldn't help him like this man could help him, dear friend. Oh, he got from Jesus what he needed that day. Josh, come if you will. Xander, come. One day there was a Christian and a communist that were sitting on a park bench together. They watched a poor drunk man stumble down the street.